So I really like ghost notes. And so I know Rob does a little bit, and so I'm going to do that. Okay, so now that I have a drum idea, I'm going to immediately grab my Linkin Park beat. What is going on, homie? Welcome to episode 7 of Make Songs Fast. This one is a little different. Your boy went down kind of a rabbit hole last night in light of all of the Linkin Park news. And I went down a rabbit hole of like hybrid theory and Meteora and Chester. And I was like, kind of got in my feels, and I started to mess around with something. And so I figured what we would do is continue on messing around with that something. All right, let me show you the first half of this idea here. And so that consists of a bass synth, a little bit of a bell, some strings, these strings are the BBC strings from Spitfire Audio, and they're free. And so if you want some strings, I feel like these are really good, you know? These are the only ones that I have, and really the only ones that I use, because they're the only ones I have. And then we have the beat here, which I used with XO, and then moved some things around, added a beat repeat and stuff like that. And nothing would be a Linkin Park Hybrid Theory Meteora style song without the Linkin Park beep, as I would like to call it. And that's just a random Pigments lead, I believe, and I just got rid of a lot of the low end. And then we have this eerie synth, again, just more layers, right? And so for the drums here, you can see I kind of have a little bit of like the next section here. I didn't do the guitars yet, I wanted to do that here. But I came up with a drum idea. I am using Get Good Drums One Kit Wonder metal, believe it or not. I actually opened up one of my Patreon routing templates that I made for the homies, and I was actually going to use this to use Modern Fusion, but I ended up hearing this and I was like, dude, this sounds really good. And so I am using metal, One Kit Wonder metal from Get Good Drums. Felt like it fit really good. For my bass, I'm using Nolly bass, of course. And so with bass and drums together. And so I am in A right now. So the way that I got this bass idea was actually grabbed from my cello, I believe it was, either my cello or my strings. It's very basic. However, I grabbed all of these notes and I put it on the bass, and then I started to move it around, and I was like, the changes need to be sooner. And so that's how I kind of got to this idea of and you can see it's just kind of riding out, because I figured, you know, when they design these choruses, they're big. And so I just know a lot of times they're just kind of, and so that was kind of my idea there. So I actually grabbed some of the stuff from the intro and just put it in here. Speaking of, so for my main, my master bus, I have kind of like my typical sauce that's in here, but I am finishing it off with the God particle from Cradle Audio, believe it or not. I really love how quickly I got there, you know, which is really nice. And so let's immediately start with the guitar. So what I'm going to do is literally grab my bass and bring it onto my guitars. Now I want to use some guitar chords, power chords, right? Because just hearing this, it's pretty, you know, it needs those power chords. I'm going to add a sustain and change the color. And we can just hear it from here. And again, you're going to be able to tell that I need power chords right away. And so rather than having to kind of like figure out like, where are these power chords? What are the notes again? I'm not really like not super knowledgeable in theory. I only know a tiny bit. But what I made for myself was some MIDI that I could use that I could just quickly grab. So like one of them is a power chord. I actually have some other stuff like some Deftones power chords, which I'll probably use the Deftones power chord on this because they love that as well. So I'm going to grab that, and then I'm going to grab my power chord here. That's my power chord. And then my Deftones power chord. So if you're a part of my Patreon, then I put everything in my little toolkit here. I put it on the Patreon. And so if you wanted to check that out, there's more things in there, but this is also in there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this power chord here, and I'm literally just going to drop it in, and then I'm going to hit legato. And so you'll see it kind of just goes to when it sees the next MIDI notes. And all I have to do is put it on the notes that my bass are on. And so I'm just going to hit Control D. And again, some of these I want that kind of like Deftones power chord, as I call it. But let's hear what it sounds like just like this. But I want to use the Deftones power chord on a few of these. Mainly like this one I think sounds cool. I think it's on the right note as well. So I'm just going to legato it and delete that. Sweet. Next thing I want to do, just to kind of add some variation to this, just so it doesn't sound like MIDI, is I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to add a little bit of velocity variance. So in here, inside of Ableton, they have this little velocity randomizer. And so I'm going to do, I don't know, maybe 19. If I zoom up or if I expand this, you could see there's a lot of variance, which is good. But another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a strum, because you have to think when you're playing that power chord, you're basically, if you look at it in slow motion, you're basically strumming it. And so inside of Ableton, in this middle tab, they actually have a strum little option here. And so I'm going to take it to about, I don't know, let's try 14%. So I went to 18. Sounds pretty good. So in terms of my drums, it's pretty straightforward. But as you could see, I added a little bit of variance to my hi-hats as well. My kicks inside of One Kit Wonder Metal are 100 on my kicks and 110 on my snare. And then I just have a few little things, and then I have a fill there. Nothing too crazy. I feel like Rob, he really tried to stay in the pocket, which is good. And so I feel like we're already there with this chorus. However, I want to get into some sort of like a verse now, right? Because we would definitely be doing some sort of verse. So we can follow what these drums are doing, but maybe we can kind of explore it some more as well. Maybe what we can do, just to kind of get that, like one of my favorite songs is Pushing Me Away. It's hard to pick a favorite, right, with those two albums. But I think what we can do is dun du ka da dun, dun du ka da dun. And so I'm gonna mess around with that. Okay, so that's basically it there. But then we can add a little bit of variation. So I really like ghost notes. And so I know Rob does a little bit, and so I'm going to do that. Okay, so now that I have a drum idea, I'm going to immediately grab my Linkin Park beep. I feel like it needs a little bit of reverb. I don't need that much. That's perfect. I'm going to start grabbing these other elements. Now, I'm not going to grab them all. So I think I like what this is doing, but it doesn't need to be this eerie right now. So the next thing we should think about is bass, right? So I'm going to grab the kick just to see. I feel like it's a good way to kind of just immediately see if matching the kick is a good idea with the bass. So if you aren't humming as you're writing these, you should. Humming is so huge. Another thing that I want to do is I want to add my strings on the second part, but I'm going to make them a little bit lower. I think one thing that we can do, again, not worrying about fills too much and all that, I think some big broad stroke changes that we can do is to maybe have this be, let's see what it sounds like on the open hi-hat 1 there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it end a little bit sooner, my drums here. Yeah, what's cool is this little sound here kind of sets us up for a nice little transition. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab my chorus, which I believe is actually this section. And you can see that I haven't named anything yet, which is something that I usually recommend that you do for sure. I actually have a whole video about it. Okay, so now we can hear what it sounds like going into that chorus. So now it looks like we already have kind of a little bit of a structure going, which is sick. Because the other thing is we can go back to this verse if we wanted to. As you know, Linkin Park is pretty structured, which I loved structured songs. I also love non-structured songs, but you know, if you listen to my other songs, like songs that I make, I really love structure because I always have and want vocals on my music. And so that's kind of why there's a lot of structure in my music. So if you want to see how this song progresses, chances are later today, if you're watching the premiere later today, I'll probably be working on this on stream and you can ask questions. Dudes, this was a lot of fun. And again, kind of a little bit of a sentimental sort of jam that we've made. Again, if you wanted to get access to the MIDI stuff that I have made for the homies, and you can become one of the homies, check out the Patreon, because not only do I have some guitar MIDI, I have some drum MIDI in there, like drum fills and stuff. I have a lot of templates, and I actually have a 2-hour mix walkthrough on how I get my overall sound. This isn't typically how my sound is, but again, I wanted to pay homage to Linkin Park, and so this is what you're hearing now. I also do one-on-one sessions, and so, you know, if you need help with songwriting or mixing, or you want me to write a song for you, which is something I started doing. Best way to do it is through the one-on-ones, because then we could kind of collaborate. But again, I can also show you whatever you want. There is no skill level or anything from very beginners to advanced and anywhere in between. And so everything's going to be in the description, but I appreciate you so much for hanging out with me and checking this out. And I hope that you learned something or it inspires you to not overthink and just start jamming and start writing and having fun. But until next time, have a good week, and we'll see you next week. Later.